Alright guys, what's up? We're back again with another video. Today we're going to be looking at some of the VOD reviews I did on stream of some of my Sanguine Quaking Fortified runs, talking through things such as cooldown timings, talents, that kind of stuff. For those who don't know, basically the talents that I typically will end up playing is some variation of Force of Nature, Stellar Drift, Soul of the Forest, and Solstice. Those are all kind of a lock, and the other stuff is a little bit more fluid. More often than not, it's going to end up being like Wild Charge, Restoration, Affinity, and Mighty Bash, but sometimes end up playing like Mass Root. I don't really think that there's like a bunch of use cases for the other stuff, but there may end up being. It really just kind of depends on that front. The legendary I've been playing is Balance of All Things. I do want to end up testing Pulsar at some point, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. But yeah, with all that said, let's just jump straight into the video. I hope you guys enjoy the content, and I hope you guys enjoyed the VOD review. I mean, so I do think that Theater of Pain is one of Moonkin's worst dungeons generally. And it's like, just due to the low mob density of the pulls. Holy shit, Quaking. I love having to delay getting into Eclipse by that long just due to Quaking. So yeah, okay, so on these guys, these contenders, you don't want to soothe off their debuff. But okay, let's pause for a second. Only soothe the Bloodhorn. Soothing the debuff off the contenders is incorrect. The contenders debuff makes them take increased damage, whereas the Bloodhorn, it does massive amounts of AoE whenever it stands there casting its Tantrum. So only soothe that. Do not soothe the contenders at all. Make your tank kite if you would rather soothe the contenders. So in this group, it looks like our MM Hunter and our Fire Mage were using CDs for the first trash pull of the instance. Whereas for me, it makes a lot more sense for me to save all of my shit for the boss here. We Bloodlust that first pull too. I do question the use of that Bloodlust. I think that Bloodlust is not great. But it really could be worse. I Celestial Convoke there at really high astral power. I think that that's bad. Now that I'm watching it back, but Now that I'm really looking at that back, I'm pretty sure that was terrible to do. That I did it like that. But at the same time, I have to play within the bounds of like what Quaking gives me, and I don't really always have an option. Here, you need to focus down Decia, the Decapitator. This is a mob that beats up your tank a lot. The Slam cast is really scary, and it's like making sure that she goes down first is the most important thing. Convoke doesn't use any astral power though, but Convoke generates on average is like 30, it's like 24 to 30 astral power. And it's like, you also have the opportunity to proc a full moon, and on a fight that's largely AoE, it's not the greatest thing. It's not bad on a boss like this, but it's not great on a boss like this either. It's like 3 targets, right? So a lot of the value from the Convoke is in the Starfall damage itself, and the astral power that it's generating. It's not necessarily in the it's not necessarily going to be in the damage of like the Star Surges or anything. And there's no reason to overcap astral power with Convoke. So you would rather use it like for the astral power rather than using it late. Is there a correct place to stand with Convoke? So on this boss, yes. On a lot of instances, there's not always a correct answer, but in this boss, yes, making sure that you don't like fucking Star Surge and thrash the rogue mob out of stealth is the most important thing. So making sure that you stand like along like this area, which is like the far side during the opener, or like even in melee along this area during the opener is important, because the rogue I think starts like over here, if that makes any sense. So making sure that you don't stand next to where the rogue is like invised is important, because then you'll just like thrash it a couple times and then like Star Surge it a bunch, and you're like, all of that damage on that rogue is irrelevant. So that's definitely something that you should be looking out for. In general, I think that standing in melee with Convoke is slightly more damage, but it's not enough damage to get excited over, because you're going to on average cast about the same number of Boomkin abilities, whether you are in melee versus ranged. But the damage from like Thrash and Rake is like, it'll end up being like 0.5 to 1% of your damage overall in a dungeon. But so it's not enough to get like super excited over. Do you always maintain Starfall in this fight? Yeah. You should always maintain Starfall in that fight rather than weaving in more Star Surges and like undercapping your Astral Power. You and your friends struggle with 19s as Kyrian. Kyrian MM booming Havoc. We feel like the comp isn't great, but we should be able to push 19s and 20s right, even with this DPS setup. Yeah, you should be able to do 19s and 20s even with that DPS setup. It's not that bad. The comp isn't great. Havoc Demon Hunter's not awesome, but the comp isn't such that it should hold you back. I think that maybe there's like routing stuff or like pull size kind of stuff that can help you out as well. Maybe do a little bit different routing. What do you think of using an add-on like Hikili to prompt you for what you should be casting next in your rotation? I think generally Moonkin is a spec that has a lot of decision making with when to use things, and an add-on like that is not always going to be of great benefit to you. I think that you would be better off trying to learn the rotation on your own. I do think that there is some merit to using rotation helper add-ons like that if you are already, say, familiar with the game. But I think if you were like learning the game for the first time, I think add-ons like that are more harmful than helpful. But I think if you already play like another spec or another class at a high level and you're just trying to remember like, fuck, I have to press, I don't know, Fury Balloon on CD. If Fury Balloon was meta, then that would make more sense. But for this, it doesn't make a lot of sense. That was interesting. I don't know why I did that. So I held Celestial for Convoke, which ended up lining up. How long did I end up holding it for? Is this correct? Let me see. I think this is wrong. In retrospect, I think this was wrong. I think I should have sent the Celestial alignment like really, really early. Because I ended up holding CA for like a minute to have it with Convoke. And I end up just CA convoking the Brutalizer mob. It's like not bad. It's just it may end up saving us more time, like in retrospect, but I'm not entirely sure how worth that really is. That seems like at a glance that seems worse. For sure. It's not the worst possible thing I could have done, but it does seem worse than just sending the Celestial alignment on CD. Alright, so now you have this Bloodthirsty mob. They were saying that you can line of sight the ricocheting blade. I think on this person, the like line of sight the ricocheting blade is just not worth. I know that line of sight the ricocheting blade on the other mini boss is absolutely worth, but on this person it's definitely not worth. So we're gonna get pride off of this. These guys are insane amounts of count relative to the dungeon. I think they're like 20 count or something. So we're gonna get pride after we end up killing her. Yeah, so we're gonna deal with the pride. I have Celestial up, and I will likely have, or not Celestial, I had Convoke up, and I will likely have Celestial up for the pull with the Commander, hopefully. If not, again, that's like another just compounding thing of just like maybe I fucked my cooldowns like really early. Sitting on my Celestial or my Convoke here for a minute, it's not awful. It's not great either. I think that there are a lot of optimizations that I need to learn with how I'm using Celestial alignment and Convoke together. Or yeah, just in general in dungeons. I think it just comes down to a lot of play. Like you don't want to always match it up together, right? You don't want to always use Celestial with Convoke. You want to use them separate occasionally. Always using them together is just a mistake. Like because you're going to end up losing a lot of uses. So making sure that you use them more often than less is important. Right there, you saw me Celestial Convoke, and then I start DPSing down the Arbalist. That's the most important thing right there, is hitting that Arbalist, doing a lot of damage to him. And then once he dies, and once the other Arbalist dies, then I knock everything down the stairs. This is like just making sure that we have typical Sanguine management. The Jagged Quarrels on these Arbalists are the dangerous the dangerous casts. They put a dot on you. You can see I have them on myself right there, and I end up arc scanning it. you can cancel it with stuns, but the cast is like 0.9 seconds long. So you're gonna end up having to like sit on GCDs if you want to stop that cast. Like I started with Bull Rush there, but I ended up having to like sit on a half GCD or whatever. It's not always worth, but it's definitely something you can do. We were trying to line of sight it there. That's why we pulled all those mobs back. On top of that, we ended up CCing the captain. The captain puts an AoE damage reduction aura from AoE effects on all the mobs that are in that pack that is like next to him. So that's why we ended up CCing it. How we did. Bless me. Alright, so yeah, now we end up killing the captain. We make sure to walk up just enough to start the RP to get the mini boss like active, so that way we can jump straight into it whenever we want to. Which mini boss is this? Okay, so we have the Sweeping Strikes mini boss. This is the one that you really hope to get. If you get the other mini boss, I guess this is just like a helpful tip. Not Wreck, but I don't know what the name of the other mini boss is. Whatever it is, you can actually line of sight the axe toss that's on you. Like if you stand like right here, you can dip in and out of line of sight to be able to make her cancel her cast of that bleed that she puts on you. And like you can do it on this side or this side. You can even do it up here. However, I don't recommend doing it up here because she also has a shield that she'll put up to be able to block your abilities. But making sure that you can line of sight that dot off. Obviously not from this mini boss, but from the other mini boss. This mini boss is actually really chill. Like you don't have to worry about this. This is the one that you hope for. This is the big time saver one. Advent Nevermore? Yeah, exactly. That's the one that has the shield and does the bleed on you. This guy is the one that you really hope for whenever you're doing dungeons, though. I typically Mighty Bash the dot cast, especially when pugging. Yeah, Mighty bashing that dot cast is like really, really important. For sure. I wonder if I can invoke the Pride. So we're killing Wreck. So no, it looks like I'm saving the Pride. We're gonna force our healer to use the CDs here. Oh my god, I accidentally stunned the mage. Quaking is so bad. I accidentally stunned our mage here. Like, look, I get the quaking on me. In retrospect, I should make him move off of me, but I'm like stuck in between the Venn diagram between the healer and the mage. So I accidentally stunned the mage. That's really unfortunate that we were stacked up the way we were. We should pre-move and positioned ourselves better beforehand. Oh well. Our mage does use combustion on this guy though, which is I think that's probably correct. Now we're going to rapidly pull the boss. I'm going to use Convoke and Celestial Alignment together, trying to push the boss as quickly as possible. This boss, while not always possible, like Quaking Week, it's not always possible to CA and Convoke on the opener, like immediately. It is really important to try to press Celestial Alignment and Convoke as quickly as possible to get as much damage into Zav as you really can. You really don't want the Convoke going into the Oppressive Banner. Right? You really don't want the Convoke going into the banner, and it's because like you'd rather push the boss quicker, because the boss damage is like the most important thing, and the banner damage, like especially when you have 3 people out at a time, is not as important. Whenever you only have 2 people out, or whenever you only have like one DPS and the tank and the healer with you, it's more relevant to do banner damage. But whenever you just have all 3 DPS out, the banner damage is like largely irrelevant. The most meta-looking group? I mean, I think that the meta is largely centered around having a Vengeance tank. I think all healers are fine. And then the DPS fluctuate between Hunter, Balanced Druid, Windwalker Monk, and Outlaw Rogue. It's like that is the meta for DPS. With like, your healer will typically be bringing the Venthyr buff. I think that seems to be like what the healer's job in a lot of the dungeons is. While we do have the Necrolord buff in this run because our Resto Shaman is Necrolord, I do think that like generally the healer's job is going to be bringing the Venthyr buff. Yeah, Fire Mage. I don't know what I said though. Why did you let the Fire Mage win for percentage on combustion damage? Because the percentage damage gain is not massive. So he's talking about the PvP. Whenever myself and the Fire Mage end up PvPing one another, it's like if he had, first off, I don't know if he had combustion up. Secondly, He should just be he should be fireballing me just to get his combustion up quicker, and I should just be wrathing him to try to get us out of the phase faster. Typically, I don't like to spend astral power in these situations because it takes too long for me to get out of these kind of situations. You would rather just try to get out of here as quickly as possible, and it's like without spending many resources, if that makes any sense. You don't really force the buff onto somebody unless they have unless they have all of their stuff up. Like if I had Celestial Alignment plus Convoke up together, I would want the buff on me. Like I think I asked for the buff here because I had Convoke up, and like obviously I'm just gonna cold Convoke without my CA up because it just makes more sense to use it right there rather than or with the damage buff rather than letting it go to the hunter. But in general, I think the best course of action is to get out of the phase as quickly as possible because your healer, your other DPS, and your tank are struggling to kill the banner. So you're trying to get out of there as quickly as possible. But at the same time, you don't want to be like you don't want to be dumping all of your astral power as well. So there's definitely some give and take. So yeah, we're gonna be pulling and backtracking a little bit here. We have the diseased horror, the butcher, and the sludge spewer. I make sure to put the diseased horror on focus cast or on focus here because that is my kick. They don't need me kicking the sludge spewer's withering discharge. That will be covered just by. I think can a shaman get every one? I want to say I think the answer is yes, but I'm not 100% sure. There's a lot of shit in dungeons that a shaman can get every single kick of. I'm not 100% sure within Theater of Pain what the shaman can get every single kick of. I know, like, for Spires of Ascension, the Restoration Shaman can get every single fist cast. Like, that kind of thing. So yeah, Shaman being in the meta, really nice. Really nice for Moonkin in general. And I think Moonkin complements Shaman quite well because Shaman doesn't have an external, which is weird. But Moonkin does have Treants, which helps tanks survivability a lot this season. It's really nice. Damn, that disease horror cast lasts forever. All right, so now we're backtracking. We're pulling these shackled souls here. We're pulling them like really safe. Like, okay, so I think that like shackled souls should either be tanked up here or where we're tanking them currently over here. I think that in general, tanking the shackled souls out on the bridge area over that area is always a mistake. I think tanking them like while you're having to dodge the circles is always awful. And I know they're like, if you run into a pug and they're trying to tank them on the bridge, you're just like, what the fuck are you doing? But yeah. So since Vengeance Demon Hunter is super meta, I think that this there's like a general CC chain that you should go on the shackled souls. It should go you group them up, and then you get a round of kicks, and this is just like the other kicks of the group, and then you do a silence, which is either the beam or the silence sigil. Either one really works. And then you go another round of kicks, and then you go the other silence, and that typically is going to be your best bet for something like that. What are your thoughts on Enhancement Shaman? I think Enhancement Shaman is actually really good, especially with their uncapped AoE. I don't think a lot of people play Enhancement Shaman is the problem with them, and so it's going to be hard to get a really indicative review of their performance. But I do think Enhancement's not bad. I just don't think I don't think you'll see it played a lot. I see a Convoke this Portal Guardian missing, not getting 2 Soul Storms, especially since like a lot of the time you're going to have like Pride right before this or Pride right after this. It really just kind of depends on your route. There are a lot of routes that have Pride like right before this. So having Celestial Alignment plus Convoke for this guy is not bad. I don't think that this is ever really a bad CA Convoke usage. Silent Sigil is really nice for the end of pull kiting Sanguine. Yeah, so maybe on Sanguine weeks you should go round of kicks into Solar Beam and a round of kicks into Silent Sigil, and then the Silent Sigil really allows you to kite out the Sanguine. That seems super reasonable to me whenever I look at it like that. So these Maguses have a Bone Spear cast. This Bone Spear is physical damage, and while you may really want to kick them if you can, if it is in fact on the tank or the Moonkin, you are able to just kind of eat them. I would recommend probably popping Barkskin at a higher level, but since it does do physical damage, it's not the most deadly thing for you. However, the other mob, what is it called, like a soul something? You'll see it after the Pride. It's got the Necrotic Bolt Volley. That guy has to make sure that he stays kicked 100% of the time. You don't really have an option. Soulbinder. What it is? Yeah, here it is. The Manacle Soulbinder. He's got the Necrotic Bolt Volley. This guy sucks. So I Convoke here with Pride. I think that this is a fine Convoke, even though I don't have Celestial Alignment up. Basically, this pull is really, really scary, and you need to make sure that you have CDs for it a lot of the times. Whether that be Combustion, whether that be getting Pride right before it. Just a lot of offensive CDs. Because, like, are we going to get 3 Soul Storms? I think we're only going to get 2 Soul Storms here. But 2 Soul Storms even still is dangerous. Like, we used Ascendance on the first one. We don't have Link Up here. So this is just, like, defensives for the second. And it's just like, oh my god, we're actually just fucking dying. So making sure that you have, like, I probably should have barked the second one instead of barking the first set. Like, obviously, in retrospect, that's something I should have done, but I didn't know that at the time that we had Ascendance for the first and then nothing for the second. Yeah, that's definitely something you should consider whenever you're using your Barkskin on that kind of guy. Mouse over remove curse. Yeah, I do have a mouse over macro for decurse. It's important to It's important to decurse on this pack with the Portal Guardian, because the Portal Guardian will, at the same time, you will have this dot. This dot should be dispelled by your healer, and there's a curse ability that makes you take like 30% increased damage, and that should be okay. You see, oh fuck, it was on me. This thing should be dispelled by you. Like, as a DPS druid, you should be dispelling off that, and the healer should be dispelling off this dot. Like, we're not getting them removed here like quickly enough. But that's the general gist of how you should do that Portal Guardian guy, that Portal Guardian pack. Now we have these Dark Speakers, which do these Death Winds casts. So something I've actually started doing differently recently is a lot of people like to clump up around this side of these guys. So I've started moving to this area. That way that there is less of a chance that everybody has to move, because us all having to move differently from the same one singular Death Winds is just not optimal. Whereas if we had half the group moving, that's actually a lot better, I think, in my opinion. Hello there. Do you know why this trinket Soul Lighting Ruby is simming so high on Blood Mallet for Balance Druids? Because the Simulation Craft profile that the Blood Mallet is pulling from is bad. That's why. Are this actually some specific party frames or basic LVUI frames? These are just basic LVUI frames. Alright, so now we kill these 2 Dark Spears. You actually make sure that you want to decurse, similar to what I talked about on the last guy, you want to decurse the curse on those Dark Spear mobs as well. It makes you have to move around a lot, not just you, but like your whole entire party. So decursing it as often as you possibly can is important. So yeah, now we have Soulbinder, Bone Magus, and the Dark Speaker together. Again, making sure that you get kicks on the Soulbinder. If you have to, you let the Magus go through. The Soulbinder and the Necrotic Bolt Volley is the most important thing here. I Convoke here. And, okay, actually this is a fine Convoke. So now I'm just trying to think. So the reason that I Convoke here, and the reason that it's actually fine, is you can see on my UI, I have a minute 47 left on Celestial Alignment. I have Convoke up. Like, if I Convoke here, then I will resync my CDs for the boss. And so it may not be perfect for the Pride timing, because it's hard for me to tell, like, this far in advance, like, how long the Pride plus, like, killing the Pride plus killing the rest of the pack is going to take. But I know that if I press Convoke here, I will more likely than not have it during the Pride buff at least. So I can press my Convoke right there. That seems pretty reasonable. And that's, like, something you should do whenever you're looking at your Convoke timings is like, is it going to resync back up with your Celestial alignment in approximately 2 minutes? If the answer is yes, then you could just like send the Convoke on CD and not have to worry about CA timings, right? Because you know that it's going to resync back up. I like to Convoke without Celestial alignment a decent amount. Not always. It really just depends on what's coming up, how long I would have to hold it for. Obviously, with Quaking, there was like a misnomer of like, if I'm gonna get fucked on my Convoke during Quaking, I would have to hold it. Sometimes there was like something I had to like factor in with that. So there was a decent amount. But in general, I think that using it on CD first and foremost, and then like if you realize that it was bad, looking at it after the fact and trying to cut back later on is more important than underusing it, I think. The Ruby is not bad for Moonkin. The Ruby's not great for Moonkin, though. I've seen some mentioning of bugging this pack on the previous platform. Have you tried that at all? I don't know anything about bugging the pack on the previous platform. Maybe you know more about it than I do. I don't know anything about it. So I bark skin pretty early on this Pride. I think that bark skinning around the early 20, like 15 to 20 stack range is pretty solid. It allows your healer to save a decent amount of damage as a whole, and healing required. And so then you're also able to like get your, so say you're playing Well-Honed Instincts. If you're not, then you should be. Like Well-Honed Instincts is our best endurance conduit. We have our Well-Honed Instincts proccing later on as well, which will allow us to be able to get healed a pretty sizable amount by it. Okay, so like look at this. I even have my Celestial Alignment and my Convoke up together on pull. I'm going to hold my CDs for a few moments because I know Coulter Rock can put like the line that he's going to put on players is going to give you a 30% damage increase, and and a lot of my damage comes in a very small burst window, and I know that I'm going to still get all of my damage out with the Pride, with the Convoke, with the Celestial Alignment. I still have 20 seconds left on the Pride buff, and I know that I'm not going to be missing like a set of CDs if I end up holding it for a short period of time. So I know that delaying it for the first draw soul is something that I can do. So using it how I did there is actually really, really smart of me, and I would recommend doing that too, as long as you're still going to get the Celestial Alignment Convoke usage inside of your Prideful timing, assuming that you have Prideful for this boss. Then yeah, that's the general consensus of how I have about that. On-use strengths are the bane of my existence. Yeah, dude, double on-use trinkets are the bane of my existence. That shit sucks. I think on-use trinkets are generally okay though. Double on-use is not great though. All right, so now we kill Coulter Rock. We're gonna be jumping back down on the next platform and then going into the Gore Chop area. We already killed some of the trash here, but we have to go back through. This Future Butcher, if you like melee players, which I fully understand if you don't, you can stand in melee of this Future Butcher and take the chops for them. I think it's nearest target, and the chop is physical damage, so Moonkin does have a lot of mitigation of physical damage just because Moonkin form has increased armor. So you are able to help out your melee a little bit if you are the one who is taking the chop. But if you don't like your melee, then I understand why you wouldn't want to stand there. Alright, so now we Celestial Alignment and Convoke this pack. I think in general, like this Diseased Horror is probably the focus. I think I was doing a poor job of focusing it down. I was hitting the Butcher a lot. I think that this Horror should be the mob that I'm hitting primarily because his meat shield is like, while it is kickable, it is a lot of free shielding that we can mess up on if we're not really careful. Is it worth to use double on use trinket and keys? I think for bleeding edge keys, it can be good for specific dungeons. I don't think for every dungeon it is great, but I think for certain bleeding edge keys, it is good, though. Yes. All right, so now we have to dodge the Backle. You can outrange the Backle, and I think we do end up outranging it. Yeah. Okay. So look at this. I'm making sure that I'm out of range of it, but I really need to make sure that I'm in range of my healer. So you see my healer standing right here, but we are over here with the Backle, and it's like I need to make sure that the healer is going to move from like where he was standing all the way over back over to here, so he's able to give us healing. So I tell him that he needs to move. I remember this like vividly, that we want to not have to move for this Vile Eruption from the gas bag, but at the same time we need to be able to get healed because the gas bag does just AoE damage periodically. So yeah, making your healer move to you, always the play. But yeah, so circling back to double on use, I think that double on use for some dungeons for the highest level of keys can be good. The issue with the double on use trinkets in dungeons is typically going to be the trash usage of them and how you're going to use celestial alignment just in general, because using Inferior Ordnance delays your second on use by 20 seconds, right? So you're implying that your trash pulls are going to live for 40 seconds, 50 seconds, a minute, which isn't always going to be the case for lower level dungeons, where it's like, it's going to be really good for bosses, right? Don't get me wrong, it's going to be the best for bosses, but it's going to delay your CDs by a significant amount on trash. So you have to be careful. And so I think it's useful in certain situations, but not all situations. I noticed I'm doing more damage using Nature's Balance and not Force of Nature. Yeah, so that you need to make sure that you're pooling Astral Power a lot in between pulls, or at least having some going from pull to pull. Ideally on larger trash packs, and this is more apparent in dungeons like Halls of Atonement, for example. Making sure that you have 50 Astral Power going into a pull is really important, because then you're able to like first global Starfall, second global Sunfire. If that makes any sense. So, yes, Force of Nature is harder to play with. Yes, Force of Nature is worse damage. The utility gained by Force of Nature is really important, and at the same time, like it allows you to keep mobs grouped up, which is really good for some stuff like Flame Patch. It's really good for some stuff like Marksmanship, 100 Cleave, like Wild Spirits. Good for like melee damage if you have like a melee in your group. And it also allows your tank to do a little bit more damage. So while trees are worse potentially for your own individual overall, it's definitely better for group overall, and it's definitely better for tank survivability. Yeah, that's it's definitely something you have to think about. That's why I almost uniformly play Force of Nature in every single run. I don't think that like you. I feel like you very infrequently play Nature's Balance, especially with the state of tanking right now. The state of tanking right now, tanks are so frail and fragile that it's really rough for them to be able to even stay in a pack, and they have to kite so much that playing Force of Nature just makes sense. Like even in like 15s, man. There's some tanks on 15s, not Vengeance, but like I think Prot Paladin at 15 probably still has to kite. Probably not Vengeance or Guardian, but like probably Prot Paladin. It's just like, damn, that's rough. Yeah, I think getting used to playing with trees is the first step. Like a good first step from going from like no voice pugs to like consistent group is and like doing higher level keys is utilizing trees right there. Utilizing trees well. Dude, okay, so what we did right here was so wrong, and I almost got punished for it so poorly. We got the tenderizing smash like next to the wall. You should never have the tenderizing smash be placed here. I am able to recover because you're able to grip yourself out of that grip with a wild charge. Like that's how all. So if you got Gorfine's Grasp in PvP, if you got Death Grip in PvP, you're able to like wild charge out of it, similar to what I did with Gore Chop. That's what I was doing. It's just like if you mash wild charge while you're getting gripped, you can do that. And I needed to make sure that I was not going to get fucking pulled straight through the gate, because I would have died. When Vengeance doesn't have CDs, you still have to run? Yeah, exactly. I mean, Vengeance is not unkillable. Vengeance is just strong. So we kill the boss. Like we're fucked on the timer, right? Even though we have 0 deaths, we're still fucked on the timer. I think our route was just like not as optimal as it could be, but I feel like this is like a pretty good run by our group for what it was. I mean, we had some bad thing when healing, but like it was really not that bad. Do you not Starfall there for the ads? I Starfall there for movement. The ads, you're talking about Gore Chop, I assume. The ads are fine to Starfall on, and I typically will end up Starfalling on them. Like, I should have had Starfall up here, right? I should have had Starfall up here because the cage is coming up and the gate is coming up. I Starfall on this fight for the movement. Very infrequently do I Starfall here for ad damage. Because the damage will be dealt with stuff such as, like, Ignite Cleave. If you have an Outlaw Rogue, you can just kind of hit them. There are a lot of classes that passively cleave a little bit better than us pressing Starfall, but for the movement, Starfall really good. Mordretha, I mean, we're again, like I said, we're fucked on the timer, but we're making sure that we do a good job of using Sigil of Chains, using Solar Beam, that kind of stuff to clean up the ads, and then we're going to play towards the edge of the room. Once the boss pushes sub 50%, then you start getting the Clash and the Charge, and this is pretty dangerous. Right here we have Clash plus... This is probably the most dangerous combo in the game. We have Portal, Ads, and Clash all at once. This is really, really scary, and I should have a Starfall out already. I didn't have Astral Power beforehand, so that's like a mistake on my end. These Deathwalkers are starting to cast, so I do end up Solar Beaming them. We're here with the Charge. This Charge is not dangerous. You do see the Frontal start coming out, which... If you're going to have to take the Charge versus the Frontal, you bear up and run straight through the Frontal every single time. Like, you could bear and bark. There isn't a ton of damage that happens on this fight, but like, bear, bark, run through the Frontal is probably what you have to do if you have to make that choice. This is really scary too. Charge into the... Oh my fucking god. Charge into the portal and now the Dark Devastation. Damn, everything on me. So yeah, that's that was a 20 Theater Pain. I think in general, like, even though we depleted the key, I felt like I played it okay. I think that there could be some better usage of my Convokes, just in this dungeon as a whole. I think that there was better timings for my Celestial alignment, but I think it just comes with playing the patch more. I think that more time playing this dungeon, and like, obviously this dungeon is not great for Moonkin. Like, this is probably one of the worst dungeons for Moonkin in general. But more time playing it is absolutely going to be beneficial, and it's just like the longer you go and the more you play, the better you're going to get.